2 weeks ago, we went and watched Joker 2 with a friend of ours, and it was a lot of fun, man. This movie, I remember when Joker 1 came out, I was filming season 1 of Sweet Magnolias, and everyone was talking about it on set, and I was like, you know what? I need to go watch this thing. I did. Loved it. Thought it was really good. Really, it's Taxi Driver on steroids, but it's really fun. They did a sequel. I remember when they first announced
They
the
didn't need to do a sequel.
They did not. They should have just left it alone. But whatever.
Yeah.
Because the symbolism at the end of Joker 1, when he's standing on the car, amazing.
Bro,
amazing.
It's funny you say that, and I just make this small ass point. I'm gonna give my opinion now, and I'm gonna unravel everything. This movie, standalone, in my opinion, is a good movie. This movie, with the first movie, is freaking horrible.
Yeah.
It completely it literally strips away everything they built in the first movie. If you take it by itself, it's actually a pretty good movie. In my opinion. You look at it as a whole, that's how I feel. I'm like, yeah. It's like, I'm glad you said that, because that is like the big thing that sits on my shoulders with this film.
Yeah.
Is it just like, it's like, why would you... The idea, I said I was going to make this quick, I'm sorry. The idea that, like, the way that they wanted to go about it, like the whole passing the torch idea, kind of, I can understand that. But the way they went about it, and I think we said that in the moment, was just poorly executed, because it just doesn't make sense to what his character, to what Arthur Fleck was in the first movie.
Right.
What changed?
Yeah. No,
what changed?
I agree. Because now he doesn't want anything to do with the Joker persona. We'll get into all that.
Yeah, sorry.
No, yeah, you're good.
I'm jumping ahead, boys!
That's a good point, though. That's a really good point, and I think I've appreciated this movie a little bit more, too, as I've sat down with it. I really haven't watched any YouTube videos on it, but I will say this. I think that I had a good conversation with our friend that we watched it with, and she said that, yeah, it definitely is a movie about manipulation, and that's pretty much it. It's literally about manipulation, which is a very, very interesting thing. And knowing your worth, I think, is another great theme in this film.
Logan, sorry, don't move your head to the left, the other way. See the Sweet Magnolias between the chair? All I could think, I was like, this guy's gonna promote it. Good promo, pal.
Yo, I placed that shit right there.
I was like, perfect place.
If you guys look on the screen, actually, the release date for season 4 is there somewhere. It is really funny. It's perfect.
Yeah,
but yeah. So, I think those are probably two really big themes in this film.
Yeah.
I really wish we would have reviewed this movie the week of, but we got hit by a hurricane because they.
Yeah, I feel like the wild robot was like boo boo on me, like boo boo on us type thing, but like the hurricane, that kind of just screwed us, like genuinely. That just made shit really difficult to do.
Yeah, no, that was an absolute joke. Because we got hit pretty hard here, but yeah,
absolute joke.
Yeah, no, it's an absolute joke, dude. But we're chilling though. We survived. We lived. I flew a kite. It was fun. But yeah. So Joker 2. This is a story that picks up like a year, 2 years,
2 years,
2 years after the events of Joker 1, and I hate this because it just, you throw everything in the first movie away with this, but now he's in jail. And the point of the first Joker movie, which I loved,
like, where did that happen?
Yeah,
and then they do this stupid little short at the beginning to explain it, and it's cool, but like, why?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Sorry, that's all I wanted to say.
No, you're right. What made the first Joker movie so fun was that cult mentality. They're taking over the city. It's craziness. Stuff's on fire. Stuff's blowing up. And then it's just like, oh, then he gets thrown in jail. Like, come on, man. Like, I don't know. I hated that so much. But anyway, so he's in jail now. And, you know, I don't even know where to go from here. He meets Harley Quinn, played by Lady Gaga, and they have a really interesting dynamic. Also, he's about to start going to court for the stuff that happened 2 years prior.
Yeah, basically everything's catching up with him. He's been in jail. Like you said, he's going to trial for everything. That's kind of all it is so far. You know what I mean? And then he meets Harley. Harley kind of like makes the whole gesture. She puts the gun to her head and does this to kind of like get his attention.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I mean, I have. Here's my opinion on the movie. This is what bothers me about this movie. The movie opened. I was kind of confused. You get through the movie. I was like, meh. I really like the second/third act. Like that middle endish point is
Mhm.
really good for me. It's just really the last like 20 minutes that pisses me off, or
Yeah.
15 that really pissed me off.
Yeah.
Everything in that chunk right before, though, I thought was they were going in a great direction. Like, I think from the moment the guilty thing happened and the thing exploded in the car, I was vibing. I was like, this is great. We're going to see some crazy
Yeah.
upbringing thingy.
Yeah.
And then it was the moment I think Buddy got out of the car and started sprinting away. And I was like, but that's way ahead. Basically, what I like about this movie is, I guess starting off, you have the two important people in Arthur's life, which is the lawyer and then Harley comes into play. The thing about, at least at this point in the movie, the lawyer recognizes that Arthur Fleck is sick in the head. And I think that is the overall looming point of this movie. When you when you look at Joker, Joker is the clown prince of crime, right? Joker is insane. Arthur Fleck is like mentally ill. You know what I mean? And so the thing with this movie is the lawyer sees that he's mentally ill. When they're on trial, you could even argue the fact that they were probably winning the trial. With his lawyer, they were probably winning his case that he was mentally sick, that the Joker and Arthur Fleck were two different people, and that he was just going through like a split personality disorder.
Mhm.
Now, I think they do a really great job of proving the point that I think they proved the point very well that there was never a split person. Arthur Fleck was Arthur Fleck. He did all of what he did. You know what I mean? I think Joker's just a persona he came up with, and that is exactly what they were pushing for. Well, you have Harley Quinn, which I think is one of the greatest elements of this movie,
Yes.
who fuels him as the Joker. Like, she likes the idea of the Joker. She wants to be with the Joker. And she's telling him that the Joker is, him, that he is the Joker, and that it is, it is this persona that he can be and that he should be and that he is. And she kind of persuades him to get rid of the lawyer as they're doing well in the case. So, you have Arthur falling in love with Harley Quinn because she's, everything that he wants in this fantasy land, which they do a very good job of, like the singing. I know that I don't know. I think we kind of I don't know how you felt, at least. I didn't mind the singing. I thought I was gonna hate it a lot more than I did. But do I think it was needed? No, but I like the way I get I can understand the representation they were going with. You know what I mean?
I,
Like
I,
that's
I agree.
his mind. That's his
Yeah.
fantasy delusion.
Right. That's his dreams, and that makes sense on why he's doing all that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I at first I hated it, but yeah, looking back on it, it wasn't bad. I don't feel like it really added a lot. And I feel like it
Yes.
was just a waste of time when you could have had more story going on with the manipulation story and manipulation theme there. But yeah, I just it didn't really add anything for me.
No, yeah. I mean, I completely agree. Um so yeah, man, I think what's interesting about the movie though is like, at the beginning of the movie, the prison guards are like, Arthur, tell us a joke, which is the guy from Banshee of Inisherin, or however you
Yeah,
say it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
The older gentleman, I can't remember his name. But they have him, they're asking him to tell a joke. Some of the guards want to see Arthur tell a joke. He's not really doing it. This is before he meets Harley. He meets Harley. Harley kind of changes, like it's weird because it, it it's like Logan was saying at the end of the first movie when he's on top of the truck, they've kind of completely smashed that for his character. At the beginning of this movie, he is not the Joker anymore. He is just Arthur Fleck, a little shell of what Arthur Fleck was.
Yeah.
Harley Quinn is the only reason that the Joker idea even gets ignited in his brain again. you could fathomably say that he was very good friends with the guards, people around the prison liked him,
Right.
and that he probably would have won his case.
Yeah.
Harley comes into the picture just to stir shit up. You know, we find out that over the course of the film, as she starts to persuade him, that the lawyer reveals that she's not actually an ill patient, that she checked herself in, that she's, the daughter of a rich doctor, and she has a PhD. So, he has a conversation with Harley, and it's almost weird how like honest she is right away. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
she's like, yeah, that's true. Yeah, I lied. Yeah, I did this. And it's like, what the fuck? You know what I mean?
Mm.
You start to see the manipulation a little bit, and you're like,
Yep.
well, can we trust her?
Right.
You know what I mean? She's supposed to be the one that he's in love with. Can we even trust this girl?
Yeah.
Um,
They did a really good job
yeah,
with that, by the way, of putting the audience in the same shoes as Arthur, of being like,
yeah,
is this manipulation? Like, that's how manipulation is in real life. Sometimes you can catch it, sometimes you can't. Some people are really good mass manipulators, some people aren't. And I think that this movie did a really good job of putting you in that position of being like really perplexed on, is she legit? Is she not? Can we trust her? Can we not? And they did a really good. This whole movie's really from Arthur's POV, and I think that they
mhm.
did a really good job of representing a lot of that with the shots, with the little cutscenes to his dreams of Harley, to the manipulation aspect of it, which is the overall theme, is really interesting.
No, I agree. Um, I completely agree with that. Actually, I like the idea that it, like you said, it is very a POV perspective because the first one was, but
Actors
it's not
POV.
not the.
Sorry.
Subscribe.
Go to
It's
our
not
website.
like, yeah, go to the website. I'll kill you. What?
Hmm?
What? Oh my god. No, yeah, no,
Joker.
but
Long
Joker,
neck.
holy shit. Long neck. Front Bill, move. No,
Boom.
move. But yeah, man, like I just, you basically what I like at this point is I'm kind of skimming over stuff, but I think it's more about the intricacy than the story because the story in a way, and it's not a negative for me because it didn't feel bad, but it is sort of repetitive in the sense that we are pretty much contained in the same environment. We are going through the same it's a case trial. Most of the movie is him in the trial room or in jail. Like he's not doing very much else or in a dream phase. It is kind of the same things, not in a bad way, like I said. Um, but yeah, like as you get along, like I just, what ends up happening is I think Arthur's about to win his case. Harley and him are still as good as ever. If anything, they have the conversation. He feels better about her than ever. He decides that he needs to fire his lawyer. Harley's convinced him that she's making him look stupid, that she's not doing the best of his interests, and he fires his lawyer. His lawyer is like pleading with him not to do that. It's
And then she disappears.
and she disappears, which frustrates me. So at this point in the movie, though, I think this is where they really start to implement the big picture, the big message. You see that the only person that actually genuinely, truly cared about him was his lawyer. At the end of this movie, when you look at the people who genuinely cared about him, it was his lawyer.
Cared about
Nobody
Arthur.
else.
Yeah.
Arthur. But the funniest thing is when he decides to fire his lawyer, she's distraught, and everyone in the audience is freaking going crazy. Like all the Joker supporters like love it. They want to see Joker take over. You know what I mean? Harley's happy, and you start to see that flip of Arthur dipping back into the Joker. And as we progress, like his lawyer tries to, one more time to get with him, and he's like, "No, I'm not doing it." And Harley's like, "Oh, I freaking love it. Let's do it." Da da da. And after all the things he said, he ends up getting brought back to the prison. That's where like the officers, beat him up, and they sexually abuse him and
Which,
they
by the
beat
way,
him.
Harvey Dent is the prosecutor, which is really cool.
Oh yeah, yeah, huge part. And that was a big thing they touched on, and specifically the one where he fired the lawyer. They talk about his like sexual assault from his mother and like the abuse he got from his parents when he was younger. And
Mm.
Harvey Dent, really made a good case there. And then his lawyer made the even better rebuttal. So you're kind of sitting there and you're like, damn, Harvey's doing so good, but
Mm.
maybe Arthur's gonna win the case.
Yeah.
They screw it up. And then, like I said, this part was, I think, really weird for all of us because like you can assume what happened, but you didn't want to assume what happened. But like after Arthur was talking crap about the guards, they beat him up, and then they sexually assaulted him in the prison.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, like that's what they,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So he kind of gets a taste of his own medicine, and it's crazy because, you know what I mean? Like that's what they do, bro.
Yeah.
The thing that gets me is like it completely shells him out. Like, that's where you see Joker completely like disengage from Arthur Fleck. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That was a big moment.
I don't know. Do you have an opinion on that?
On that moment in particular?
Yeah, like why do you think it affected him so greatly? Because he's been beat up, but like
Because
why did that cause him like completely drop the mantle, you think?
well, I think it was just also the fact that no one was there for him. The one person that did care for him, I think he was starting to realize the manipulation.
No,
And I
you
think
actually
that
and they killed the only other guy
and
that
they
supported him in the jail.
exactly. So I think right. Yeah, what's his name? So yeah, I think that I think it was just the fact they had no one there for him that was starting to hit him a little bit, and something that happened in his childhood came back. It was more of that trauma, right? And I think that that's what really heavily affected him to kind of find more out about himself, and then he eventually just went full, disengaged
Fair.
from that aspect.
Fair. Yeah, no, that was a tough moment.
That
Like,
was
because I mean, Arthur's fucked up, but like, you watch the movie and you're like, he's sick. He's not a bad person. You know what I mean?
Right. He's just mentally right. And the lawyer did a really good job of bringing that to life, which is why I love that character. But looking back on it, it's like I realized why she was gone. I totally get it. She was gone so that moment could happen. That realization of nobody's there for you. The only person that did care for you is gone because of Harley Quinn, who was manipulating you, which shows how bad manipulation can ruin your life. And it was a very, very interesting. So it works. It makes sense on why it happened, and I get it. But I guess the lawyer did do her job of showing that human side of Arthur.
Yeah.
I guess she did her job.
Yeah, I think I did skip the one part because he does end up because I think he represents himself before he gets like the whole rape thing happens to him.
Yes, he does.
He represents himself during
as
one
the
case.
Joker.
Yeah, as the Joker, doing all these weird accents and weird voices, and prosecuting the midget from the first movie and his old neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
And funny enough, he does a lot of stupid shit that just makes no sense. But when he does things and asks questions that make sense, it kind of makes sense. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're kind of sitting there, you're like, wow, okay, well, maybe he's got a point. You know what I mean? When he was talking like the midget, he was like, well, did you think I was doing this? And he was like, you were never like that. And he was like, so you think I was sick? Like, he was making good points.
Yeah.
Well, after all that, like we said, he goes in with the guards, gets a little screwed up, and then he comes in the next day as Arthur Fleck, completely guard dropped. He takes a stool, walks right up to the jury, and he basically just comes clean. He says, I'm Arthur Fleck. I'm not the Joker. I willingly did all of those crimes. I know what I'm doing, and I'm sorry. And you just like the energy in the room drops because you're just like, you feel bad for the man. You're like, holy shit, he is sick. Mm-hmm. Harley, everyone in the room just gets up. They all look at him so pissed off and just leave him. You just watch them just leave him behind. And it's like, what the hell? Like, he loses all of his following just from being himself.
Right.
And then so basically the point
another theme,
yeah. Because really after that he goes back to the prison. I mean, I think that's just then when they do his booking. You know what I mean? They try to see if he's guilty, not guilty. The jury took 15 minutes, they said, or like 20 minutes. It was super quick. They came out, and as they're announcing his guilty verdict, the place explodes. Boom.
Yeah.
A car bomb goes off outside. And then Arthur makes his way outside and is picked up by some hooligans. Some freaking hooligans.
And then about 5 minutes down the road, gets out and runs.
Yeah, I know. You can tell the people about that. I know that pissed both of us off.
Yeah, I don't get that. It's why you're safe. You're hidden. No one knows where you are, and you have supporters and all that, and then you get out and run.
And I know they were talking about him, like they're like, he's the one that's going to save us. Like,
well,
they were talking a lot about him in the car. But...
And we're talking heavily about the Joker, which at this point he wanted to
step away from.
And so I think that was a symbolism of he was running away from that persona by physically running away from the car.
Yes.
That's my guess. Looking back on it,
which is good symbolism, but
it's good. It felt very, now that I look back on it, it makes sense.
After just getting guilty verdict and a car bomb going off and escaping, I wouldn't, it just didn't Maybe if he got to somewhere safe and he was like running somewhere in the woods or
Well,
something.
right. And what I don't understand is if he right. So I think that's what it was, is he wanted to run away from the Joker. But then my question is, you brought up a really good point. If he got out and ran away anyway from the cops, why not just stay in the car, get somewhere safe, and then run away? So you're
Exactly.
right. You're right. That is a good point. But I think it was symbolism. So like that
Yeah.
scene's not as bad as I initially felt watching it. Now that is in my mind, but
Yeah.
you know, I don't know.
Still, it just seemed a little discourse for like what was going on.
Yeah.
Because all that happens is he runs up the road. He runs back to his apartment to find Harley sitting outside.
Mm-hmm.
And so actually, this is a really cool point, right? I wanted to make this point. Because I will admit, this was a YouTube video I watched that gave me this theory.
Okay.
So we skipped. Well, it's not a very big scene, so I understand why we didn't really speak on it. But Harley, right before the bomb goes off, points a gun to her head. Right? They kind of show a clip after she leaves, after the Joker kind of like drops the persona, that she goes and puts a gun to her head. What I heard is that some people think that she shot herself, and that was just like an imagination of Harley after that, and that's why she looked different, and that's why she like left. It was kind of like a walking away moment. In my opinion, I don't think she shot herself. It just doesn't make sense if they're going to continue the story. And I don't think she'll play Harley again, but like it just wouldn't make sense for, you know what I'm saying?
I don't think she shot herself.
I think it was more of just representation again.
Was right because this
Killing
this
Harley.
was in the courtroom.
Where he was killing Joker, she's killing Harley Quinzel, and she's becoming Harley Quinn.
That makes sense. That's
sense. What I felt.
That makes
you know
more
what I mean?
sense. Yeah, that I agree.
And that's why the persona she looked different. And
yeah. I'm told she's right. She talks about how she put on this persona for the Joker. Joker's not there anymore. She has no reason to be that persona anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, that makes total sense. Yeah, the saying that she actually killed, that's just stupid.
I know, right?
Yeah, that's dumb. So yeah,
it was game theory.
Exactly. It was her getting rid of that persona because Joker's persona is gone. That's what it is. That's the reason she's there in the first place. She indicted herself. So she's not got to be that. She doesn't have to be there anymore because her purpose was to get to know the Joker, bring the Joker back because she saw the chaos. She loved the chaos. She loves that stuff. She's messed up in the head. And that was her goal. Well, there's no reason. There's no goal to go after anymore. So why be this persona when you could just be yourself?
Exactly.
So yeah, that makes sense. That theory's stupid.
Yeah. So yeah, but all he does is end up running back to the house, and she's sitting there waiting for him, and she basically says, you know, I'm leaving. You know, you're not the Joker. I wanted to be with the Joker. I never wanted to be with you. And
straight up honest, bro. She did not care.
She did not care. She was completely honest. And it's kind of heartbreaking because you sit there and you're like, you feel for him because that's all that he had. And like, that's where the big turning point is, where it was like the lawyer was right. Like everyone abandoned him when he didn't want to be the Joker. And, you know, she ends up leaving him and the cops pull up behind him and they find him and they bring him back to the jail. And, you know, you're just kind of left here sitting like, damn, bro. Like, you know, she ends up telling him, he's like, I thought you were pregnant, like our child, which was, it goes back to the point. She was lying about that. You know what I mean? Yeah. She just said that she was. And so, yeah, she ends up abandoning him, leaves, and then he gets arrested and returns to the jail.
Yep.
So this is the most interesting part for me. So at the end, at this point, we know he's guilty. He's in the jail. Well, he's coming out. He's just sitting there the next day, and the main guard, he's like, Arthur, you got a visitor. Well, he walks out. It was so crazy because in the moment I'm like, oh yeah, it's the lawyer. Maybe it's Harley again. Who's it going to be? Maybe it's Bruce Wayne from the first movie or something. Yeah. I don't know. Like, He walks out, and another inmate is like, Arthur, can I tell you a joke quick? And he's like, sure. Well, our Banshee guard continues to walk away and is out of frame. It's come to my attention that this was all set up. This was all completely set up. There was no person that ever came to visit him.
Yep.
There's no reason that the guards should have ever left him alone that long.
Yep.
It makes complete sense. It was a setup.
Yep. Guard
walks away. Leaves these two together. And then I actually love this part. I hate this part, but in retrospect, I love the joke of it, the line, because it's symbolism. And he basically talks about how there's like a psychopath and a comedian walk into a bar, and, you know, or a clown walk into a bar, and how he looks up to him. And, Psychopath asks Clown if he could buy him a drink, and he says you can get him whatever you want, and he says, I'll give you exactly what you fucking deserve. And then ends up stabbing Arthur a few times in the stomach with a shank, and we kind of just watch Arthur fall, go into like a thing, and I'll get to that. But this is the one I'm thinking of, like the big point I'm getting at. This is exactly what he said to Murray when he killed Murray. And it's the exact same situation. A psychopath with a clown, at this point being Murray being the clown, Arthur being the psychopath at the time, and now it's flipped. Arthur, who looked up to his greatest icon, Murray, was pissed, and because he fell short of this promise, and he ends up, killing Murray. And it's the same way. The psychopath looked up to Arthur as the Joker, and for leaving the Joker mantle behind, he gave him exactly what he deserved, ends up killing him. And we see this scene of Harley and Joker as he kind of just like, it's the final scene, where he just loses his, like, I don't know. He just basically, it's that like last moment of like goodbye for him. It's like his show is ending. Harley's leaving. It's that breakup moment where she like points the gun at him. He's like, from earlier where she pointed the gun at him earlier and shot him, and now it's coming to fruition that he's, But yeah, it ends up he falls over and he dies, and that's pretty much the end of the movie. Arthur Fleck dies, and the guy that killed him ends up stabbing a smile into his face. And the thing with that imagery is funny because the timeline, it wouldn't make sense that it's Heath Ledger, like Heath Ledger's Joker. But it's definitely symbolism to Heath Ledger's Joker.
You know what I mean? 100%. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know. I don't know Joker comics enough to speak on this. I know that the original Joker comic, I believe, had the Jack Nicholson approach. Falls into acid, whatever, you know what I mean? Messes him up.
I was going to say, that's why, like, I always have the big point. You've heard me say this with Joker 1. You can name it Psycho. You can name it Killer. You can name it anything. This Joker story, so that's the big point that everyone's getting at. When they made this movie, it doesn't say Joker, the origin story. It's Joker and origin story. He's not called the Joker. It's called Joker because he's a Joker. The whole point is Arthur Fleck was never originally ever supposed to be the Joker. Yeah. He's just basically what inspired the idea for the Joker. Right. You know what I mean?
Right.
And the problem for me, and I think it's the same problem for you, and that's why I keep going back to like the standalone movie thing. You look at the first movie, and you look at this movie, and I think they're both very, honestly, the second one's not nearly as good as the first, but I actually do think the second one's pretty good. When you look at everything that the first movie built, though, I understand that you weren't making a Joker origin story, but it doesn't make sense for Arthur's character to do that. It doesn't. Because what changed? You know what I mean? Like, what changed him from being that guy at the end of the movie? At the end of the first film, when he became pretty much the clown prince.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying he was ever, and I'm, like I said, I agree with the passing of the mantle thing. The timeline doesn't make sense. But why would it be in a way that he ends up leaving the mantle altogether? That's what I think bothers me. When you look at the whole grand story of the Joker, because this is a completely, Arthur Fleck has never been in a comic. He's completely made up. This was a complete origin story. Why would you build him to be this inspiration for him to run away from the mantle? Why wouldn't it have been more of like, I don't know. I would have thought like, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to understand what you're saying.
Like, for me, it doesn't make sense for him to embrace the Joker at the end of the first film to end the second movie with him leaving it like completely just like, yeah, I don't want to be the Joker anymore, and then getting killed for it.
No, yeah, I'm
like, that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
It should be more so. I was thinking maybe more like maybe him and Lady Gaga had a kid or something, and that's like the passing of the torch, or like maybe he's at a riot and led a riot or something, and they end up killing him because he just won't stop.
Right. So what you're saying is if he didn't die, it's like the Joker itself is gone, it's vanished, and the only thing that's keeping the Joker going is him actually dying, and that's what's kind of stupid.
What's stupid is the way they do it. I guess at the end of the day, it is a beautiful thing because it's exactly how Murray died. It is kind of suiting, like, someone who looked up
Yeah.
to him, who inspired him, like kills him. But I just think that for the whole story, the grand story, I think it's good. But I think for Arthur Fleck's personal story, it kind of just irritates me. You know what I
No,
mean?
I see what you mean. I
I
see what you
described
mean.
it as Luke Skywalker from prequels or like, Star
Mm,
Wars and then Disney Star Wars, where it's
yeah.
like Luke is not the same Luke. Like
Right.
Luke at the end of the movie after he beats Darth Vader would never end up hiding and try and be like, "Oh, the Jedi should go away forever. I hate the Jedi." Like it
Yeah.
just makes no sense. Same way I look at this movie, it's like it doesn't make sense for him to embrace this and then at the end of this movie be like, "Yeah, actually fuck that." What? I mean, it makes sense, but
The it
I
makes
don't
sense for
love
what
it.
they were going for. I agree.
Yes.
It's just not a good choice, which kind of goes back to this movie just didn't need to be made. It just didn't need to be made.
Yeah.
It needed to be thrown away. And then whatever you wanted to come up with in your brain for what happens after Joker 1, do that. Did it take over the city? How does that live on? Whatever,
Yep.
whatever. How does that affect Harvey Dent? How does that affect Batman? All that stuff. You can come up with that in your head, which is why I always say on every single movie review we do, we're going to talk about this for Terrifier 3. Theater of the mind is so important.
Mhm.
It's our brains, the stuff it can think of. Our imagination is the strongest asset, the strongest tool that we have. We can come up with some crazy stuff, man. Some crazy
Yeah.
stuff. And I feel like with Joker, that imagination that you had at the end of the first movie, just you it just you kick it to the side. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it makes the first movie less enjoyable because you know what happens. And I hate that with sequels. I hate it with sequels. And this is something it did with this one. It was unneeded. I understand why they did what they did with Arthur Fleck. It makes sense. He was
Yep.
manipulated, all that stuff, came to himself at the end, right when
Yep.
he throws away the Joker. His only purpose in this world by a lot of people, because think about it. What made him not a throwaway person, a human being that wasn't wanted on this earth? What gave him purpose? Being the Joker in the first movie, being the Joker. That's what gave him purpose. That's
Yeah.
what got his. That's what
It's
got
the idea
attention.
that he thought he was here to be like make people happy. And
Right,
like through the Joker persona, he was doing that.
right. He throws that away. What happens? No one's there for him. No one cares for him. At least he thinks so. The lawyer cared for him, but he throws away that person because of manipulation. One of the themes in this film. So it makes sense that actually he goes right back to the person he was in the first movie, right at the end of this film. And I think that that's a really special turnaround. And it comes back to the original film in that sense.
Yeah.
But it was unneeded. No one asked for it. No one wanted it.
I agree. At the end of the day, it's like that's where I was like the movie in itself, Loki to me, is a beautiful piece of work because it does make sense and I understand the entire thing. And that's I try not to be critical about that fact where it's like if it's because if it's an ending that I wanted and it didn't happen, that doesn't mean it's a bad movie. I think in and of itself, this movie is a beautiful creation. Do I think the world's happy with it? No, I don't think it's anyone expected or wanted. But it's not. It wasn't our choice. You know what I mean? So like, I give it its flowers. Um, but yeah, man, I really agree with what you were saying there at the end. I don't know.
Yeah.
It just
It comes down to we understand it. It just why do it? That's the question.
yeah, because you tarnish what you tarnish like. Whereas like I hold this movie highly, and Logan, as you can see, let me talk about it. I'm very passionate about the Joker films.
Mhm.
Joker 1 was like my favorite movie of all time, which I know sounds crazy, but there's just something about it that like really touched me that I was like, damn, like acting is fire. And it's like, again, this movie is not bad, but you just tarnish so much from the first one. And it's like, as a standalone, I can look at it and I can be like, all right, I actually enjoyed it. If you ask them, I was really happy up until the last 20 minutes. I really liked the movie until the ending. So I just think, and that contributes to the fact, as Logan said, we both know how the first movie went. So it just doesn't like seem so fulfilling in a
Yeah.
way, but what can you say? What can you do?
Yeah, I don't really have anything else to add to it. I mean, the whole movie makes sense. It's just one of those things of why do we need it?
Have you seen the thing where they were what kind of, it's like, this is for Joaquin, like it was Joaquin's movie? Because
in what
apparently,
way?
so the whole thing with the movie is the movie came to Joaquin in a dream. And he approached um Todd Phillips with the movie, and they're like, I fucking love it. And then they made the movie, and they were like, this is basically just like a tribute to Joaquin. Like they only made this movie because like Joaquin wanted it made.
I mean, hey, they got a lot of money out of it, right?
Yeah,
That's one thing, but that's so they weren't thinking about doing a sequel to it. That's interesting.
it was interesting because he's the one that said he wouldn't do a sequel
Right.
when they first did it.
Right.
And at the time, I was a little pissed off. But it's like looking in the again. I was expecting something different. I was expecting, the shots of him and Harley like kicking, on the stairs
Yeah.
with people around them. I was expecting some crazy shit.
Mm.
I was expecting him to fully step into it and embrace that
Yeah.
persona.
Right.
Because the problem for me, and this will be like the last thing I comment on, you look at this is exactly what I was saying too. You look at how big the Joker is. Batman's biggest villain. The Joker is arguably the top 10 biggest movie iconic, villain in history.
Yeah.
So you're now adding the element that Arthur Fleck, in the first movie, they didn't add this element. In this movie, you've established for fact that Arthur Fleck was the inspiration for the Joker that we know and love. So now you step up because you cross a line. Like one, they make this case, and I'm not trying to be like insensitive, but they make it seem like it's like how big Casey Anthony was. Like this Arthur Fleck trial is like a Ted Bundy, Casey Anthony, Menendez brothers trial. Like it's a huge trial that the world is in, or at least maybe not the world, but at least like the entire state's involved in. You know what I mean? So you do a thing where he's the big inspiration for the biggest villain of all time, but we've never heard about him before. But like, you know what I mean? I just don't feel like it was satisfying the way they did it. You don't give him enough of like a big oomph to be that thing that like everyone knows about. But then like he's just abysmal. Like we're just supposed to like we've never heard of Arthur Fleck, even though he inspired the Joker.
Yeah.
That's where I felt like I wish they did something more sentimental or like meaningful with his character with it.
Yeah.
Then they did that. Then it kind of would have made more sense at least, because now it just is like we've never heard about the guy, but he seems pretty damn important, right? So it's like I don't know.
Yeah, that's the one bad thing about doing origin stories that aren't really an origin story is like you said, there's no true way to rationalize the fact he's never been brought up.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a big issue for me. I don't think I think that he could have easily been an influence without Heath Ledger's Joker bringing him up or anything like that. That's not where my issue lies with this film. Where my issue lies is the fact that it was just unneeded. We didn't need it. It was a waste of time, a waste of story, and I hate it when sequels do this. But sequels should only be a thing if it adds something to the original film.
Mm-hmm.
This took away from the original film. That's the issue. That's where it sucks. And that's why I'm not a big fan of it.
Yeah, I agree. Because the point I was making, I honestly, it doesn't even affect like a 0.1 of my grading system. It's just something I'm thinking about after the film. It's like Miles Morales. If you ruin Miles Morales, like you've never talked about it before, you establish it. But the problem with this is it's a prequel. So it's like this was before anything that's ever taken place. Right. It's like for the first time telling this story, you're going to do it like that. Yeah. Like I feel like it could have been more impactful, but I agree with you. The big problem of the movie is that it just takes away from the first.
Well, here's my thing. I think it was impactful, but this movie takes away from the impactfulness of the first film. When they're taking over the city,
the streets, you're like, that's, holy shit.
Yeah, that's where it's.
I got chills watching that scene.
Right. So that can easily start the Joker. That can easily start Heath Ledger's Joker. That's kind of where my issue lies. This film takes away from it, and that's so. I see what you're saying now. Yeah,
and you never like.
It lies
that's where I'm like,
this film.
You've killed this man. You made such a good point just there. It's like you look at him and it's like, that is such a freaking good point. Sorry, my brain is like, that is such a good point. You could have done it that way, and then like if they've never brought him up, it doesn't matter because you don't need to know what happened to him. Yeah. You know what I mean? Now we know. Huge trial. This guy's dead, but he died. I like that. I get what you're saying. I didn't mean to cut you off, but that was a really good point. That was a really good point.
Yeah, we don't need to know as long as it's impactful. But like you were saying though, it just you take away from that first film. And because it did such a disservice to that first film, I can't stand this movie. I can't. I can't. Whether it was a dream or not, dude. Which, by the way, sounds like that's just not true. There's no way. I feel like really what it is, that was just a fun story they wanted to do for press. I feel like, you know what I mean? I feel like what it was they wanted money. They wanted to make a sequel. This first movie made a lot of money, and 5 years later, they want to make another one. Mm-hmm. That's my opinion.
Yeah. No, yeah, I feel you. I ain't got much more to say about it.
All right. Let's rank it, man. I went first last time. Brayden, let's hear your ranking for the Joker.
I'm going to give it an 8.2. That might be a little high.
Wow.
Yeah.
It would make me feel like a dick.
No, but that's also like, I was telling you guys that in the moment too. Like, I think like, I really like the musical stuff. I liked the element of it. The biggest negatives for me is that, like I said, as a solo film, I do like it. I just think in the grand scheme of things, it just wasn't the right move for the franchise. And that's what, that in the end, the ending is what really like bumps it down to an 8.2 for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I do I thought the acting was amazing. Like Harley Quinn, like, man, I think they should maybe give them both noms at the Oscars, but like Lady Gaga did really good. Like that character was really well done.
Yeah.
But yeah, I liked everything about it. I think it takes away a lot. You know what I mean? A lot. Yeah. So
I'm with
maybe
you.
8.2 is high, but I don't know.
Yeah. You know, I was gonna go way lower, but now that I think about it, like the movie itself, like you said, was decent. But I base sequels off of the fact that they're a sequel.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It doesn't have to be as good as the first film. I'm not saying that at all. It's gonna be hard to top that first Joker movie, but you at least need to add something to it if you're gonna do a sequel to something. This took away from it. Sequels are already bad enough when they don't add anything to it, but they're horrible when you take away something from the original. I was going to go lower. I'm going to give this movie a 7 out of 10. I really like it. There's really good aspects to it. The manipulation's done better than any other film I've seen personally. I think it's a really good theme, a really interesting one. That I think we can dive into a lot more, like in filmmaking that we don't do enough of.
Yeah.
It's a theme that we don't see. But they destroy the whole first movie, in my opinion, and what makes that first movie special, since it is a build-up to the end.
Destroyed it.
If that movie did not deliver at the end, Joker's a boring movie.
Yeah.
But it did deliver at the end, and that's what makes it great. You take away from the end in this movie the one thing that made the original Joker movie great, or there's a lot of great things in that film, but I mean, what the movie was building up to.
It was like, that's what literally you could be like, ding.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yep.
Like, that's what did it. You know what I mean?
And you take away from that in this film. I can't forgive it for that. I give it a 7 out of 10. I was going to go 6.3, but I was like, you know what? This movie had good. And it did the manipulation thing very well. Acting's very good. The cinematography is amazing. I like the aesthetic of it. So I'll you got to give it a little bit more grace, I guess. So I'll give it a 7 out of 10.
Fair.
There you go, baby. So Joker 2, we have
There you go.
You're 8.2, right?
8.2.
8.2. I'm a 7 out of 10. You guys let us know your review down below. What you thought, what your ranking is. And if you're watching this as its own separate review, like, subscribe, check out our other movie reviews we do. We do a review almost every single week. Go check out our website as well, actorspov.com.